Welcome to the Living in Partnership with Spirit group. My name is Ingrid Turner, your ever grateful host. So happy to be here today. And I get to have an incredible group of people on to talk to you about transformation. You know, those processes, those times in life where it just gets icky and difficult and you feel like you're grinding through and can just hardly get through it. We've all been there, and we're all here to talk to you about that today. And I'm so excited. Before I bring on our panel, I want to give you a little bit of an introduction of me and the show and what we're all about. So the show is called Living in Partnership with Spirit, same name as this group if you're watching live in that show. If you're hearing this out on the airwaves post live show, if you would like to interact with us, I encourage you to join our Facebook community. It's a group and it's called Living in Partnership with Spirit, same name as the show. So if you just pop that into Facebook search, it'll come right up, boom, and you can join us. It's an incredible place for our healers and seekers and teachers and channels and anybody interested in those subjects to gather, to learn from each other, to share our wisdom, and to support one another, especially when you're going through, like we're talking about today, times of real upheaval and transformation. My name is Ingrid Turner. I am the proprietor of this show. I started the Living in Partnership with Spirit Facebook group to try and bring a community together around me when I was going through a very challenging period in my life with some deep transformation and really trying to figure out who in the hell I was and what the hell I was doing here. I am a spiritual medium, so that means that I use the modalities of psychic and mediumship to express the divine. I'm also the founder of the Bhava Spiritual Mission. You can find us on Facebook. It's BHAVA, Bhava Spiritual Mission. Our goal is to help you hook up with the infinite, to use these innate gifts of psychic and mediumship, which we all have to some level or another. We just all connect differently, and to help you connect directly with the divine. All right, so one of the things that needs an introduction is our very first supporter of our Living in Partnership with Spirit show. The company is called Listening to Smile. The owner is Ian Morris, who you get to meet face to face today because he's on this panel with his own incredible story of transformation and where he's been and where he's gotten to. And I will not speak for him. I will let him tell you that because it's an amazing story. Everybody's got an amazing story. But I want to talk to you about Listening to Smile. And I'm going to pull up a little visual here for you because we like to look at things. Okay. This is Listening to Smile. Listening to Smile is frequency-minded music. So what does that mean? That means that you're listening to healing music. It's sound healing music. He also has put together a team. He has put together, he's got an affiliate program. That's what I'm like. See, he's on the show and he's listening in the background now. So I'm kind of nervous while I'm talking about it because I'm like, oh my God, what if I missed something? Even though I've been talking about it. Sorry, Ian. So he's put together an affiliate program, which is one of the things I'm most excited about that Ian does. You get to join his team and help spread, what he says, spread the good vibes. It's an easy way to get into spiritual work. If you're drawn to sound healing and music and, the cosmic sound of Om, you kind of have this sense that vibration is all of it. It is. And Ian helps you become a part of that in a really easy sort of out of the box way. He gives you everything you need to be successful in putting on sound healing meditations using his frequencies and using his tones. Additionally, if you want to go listen to some of his music, he go on the listeningtosmile.com website. You can find his tracks. You can listen to some samples. And then if you use the code Ingrid Turner with no space there, as you can see it on your screen, you get 10% off all tracks. And I think they range from like $10 to $12 a track. So they're not very expensive and they're it's incredible music. So I encourage you to go take a look and then let me know what you think. Okay. Circle back around and tell me, give me some feedback. Let me know what you think. Listeningtosmile.com. Okay. All right. Now, once again, I encourage you to comment, leave your comments, leave your feedback. We will get to your questions. Okay. So today's panel transformation. So I'm going to really briefly introduce you to our panel. We have Ian Morris, who I just talked about. He is the owner of Listening to Smile. He also is the owner of Wake Magazine, which is a spiritual-based magazine, online magazine. He's got a whole lot of stuff that he can share with you, and a whole history that I will let him give to you. Anna Kowalska is on with us today. She is, I've been following her around on Facebook for quite a while, met her through a mastermind group that we were both a part of and has done wonders for the both of us. And she's a hand analysis, scientific hand analysis. So what you know of as palm reading, Anna knows of as scientific hand analysis. She's going to give you more details about that. And we have Anthony Rodriguez, Walking Crow. Anthony is a healer based in the Southern California area, and he's got an incredible backstory of how he came into this work as well and where he came from. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to bring us all on. Hi, everybody. Welcome, and thank you so very much for coming on the show with me today. Hi, waves. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I gave a very brief intro to you guys, but I want to give you each an opportunity to go around and talk about what you do now and tell us how we can find you. So let's start with Ian. Hi.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on.
Yeah, so my name's Ian Morris, and I am the founder of Listening to Smile, which is, like as you said, frequency-minded music, which is basically combining elements of sound healing and various genres of music to create a unique soundscape for, personal growth and development. And so that's what I do. And you can find me at listeningtosmile.com and listeningtosmile.bandcamp.com.
What's the difference between listening to smile.com and listening to smile.bandcamp.com?
Bandcamp just goes straight into the music. You can listen to all the CDs, the discography, and you can make purchases there, or you can make purchases from the website and learn more about the company on the website. So, some people just get into the music, some people want to get into the information and the music. So it just kind of gives people two options.
Got it. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Ian. Anna, tell us a bit about the work that you do today and tell us how we can find you.
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you for having me here. So yes, I'm a scientific analyst, and I look so it's based on a system, but I do use a lot of intuitive power, and I help people find their purpose. I help people recognize how they operate in the world and what the next thing that they should be working on is for them to step into their purpose, get on a path in life that's actually going to be rewarding. And even if painful, which every transformation is, I don't care what anybody says, the information in hands, we can actually fine tune and find the way that actually, no matter how painful, feels purposeful.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Thank you.
So the way to find... Yes, so the way to find me is on Facebook. I'm on Facebook all the time, and at annakowalska.com. That's ANNAKOWALSKA.
Awesome. Thank you, Anna. Anthony, give us the rundown.
Anthony Rodriguez here, Walking Crow, and for the Transformational Sacred Drum Medicine and the Sacred Drum Medicine Show, I also host a blog talk radio show, which came through Ingrid, as a matter of fact. And I am an energy healer. I am a medicine man, shamanic drummer. I say shamanic drummer, and everybody makes the assumption to the other because I said medicine man. So I'm very careful with that word, by the way, because I don't like to call my things. I let the community do that. I help people transform. Transformation is what I do. Transformation is what I have done. And I take people... when I start to talk to them, I start to read them, I take them to ground zero by pulling the thread of the history of their life and the things that have happened. I also created and facilitate miscellaneous men in self-care. It's a sacred circle of men for men to come into their voice, a voice that they lost through what I call castration, emotional castration over their lifetime, and help them to come into their voice so they can have a voice in partnership, whatever their partnership looks like with regard to relationship.
No, that's great. I love that you're working with the divine masculine. There's a lot of attention on the divine feminine, which I think is totally fitting. It's nice to have somebody coming on and working with the divine masculine too. Thank you, Anthony. Oh, where can we find you?
Oh, we can find me on Facebook at Transformational Sacred Drum Medicine, Transformational Sacred Drum Medicine Show, and Miscellaneous Men in Self-Care. And you can find me at www.sacreddrum24.weebly.com. It's a temporary website, which is going to be going live soon, but you can still find all that information there.
Cool. Great. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you all again. Thank you for taking the time out of your very busy lives, because I know how busy you are and how much you guys have going on, to take an hour with me and with our community to share your story, share your process, share your advice for some of us going through going through it, right? We know what it's like. We've been there. So thank you once again. And I asked you to come on the show because I know each of you, and I know a bit, though probably not the whole story. I know a bit of your story. I know what you've been through. And so I wanted to go a little bit deeper now. We've given sort of the intro where you're at now. I want to talk about the transformative experience or a transformative period in your life where you just had the upheaval, where you had that churning, that digging into the soil, and boom, it all comes up, that brought you to where you are now. Because what's really magnificent about each and every one of you is you are sitting squarely in your purpose. You are hanging out in your destiny, and you are living the life you know you were born to live. But talking to each of you, and this is just universal truth, we all have to go through some shit to get there. And so I want to talk about the shit. I want to talk about and we'll keep it kind of brief. You know, we don't have to do a whole monologue, but give us some examples and give us a little bit of history on what you went through, so that those of us, those listening today, can kind of hook in with that and hook in with their own experiences. And Anna, would you please start us off with that?
Would love to.
This is Julian.
I know, right? See the painting behind me? I don't know if you can.
There is, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. That is a result of me stepping into my purpose. So I was, and every story can be told so many different ways. So I'm going to try to tell you the most painful part. So I was living on Upper West Side of Manhattan and working in the mortgage industry. Several years after I left a relationship, which was supposed to be a marriage and a whole, package of a life the way that it was supposed to look like. Fairy tale life. I left it because it didn't feel right. And I thought I was following what I'm supposed to be doing, but I was still very lost, very confused. From the outside, it might have always looked great, perfect, exactly what anybody would want. Check, check, check. And I was in pain, and there was always something missing. And I was living on Upper West Side of Manhattan, working in the mortgage industry and hanging out around really cool people. I mean, I was living in Manhattan. How much cooler can you get, right? And there was still, my soul was still crying, and I was trying different things and nothing would work. Everything would fall apart that I would touch. Again, the falling apart wasn't really happening on the outside. It was really my experience of it, right? And I had my hands analyzed because I had no place else to go. And this woman suggested I have my hands analyzed, and there was a scientific system behind it. So I really didn't have to believe much in order for that to work for me. And that set me on a path. And I've been working with the divine, with spirit. I'm a healer, I'm an artist, and I'm a leader. And those things would never fit into the life that I used to live. So now I try to combine the very practical ways of living, because a lot of us are still, all of us are living human life, right? In human body, having experiences. And it's really amazing to meditate and get downloads and swim in the beautiful divine energy. I still do that. And then there is the physical experience of life that even after transformation and after I got hit with bricks and after I thought I got on a pad, and I did, I still get put through a ringer daily. So there is a point of transformation, and then there are all these little tiny twists that we'll keep going through no matter what, because we always call to that higher level, right, of expansion, which is all transformation. So the outside, I probably didn't change much, but inside I'm a completely different human being. And then it reflects in a way that I live. Like that painting is a reflection of the divine, feminine divine, who is a dancer. I'm a dancer. I created this whole body of work called Dance and Paint. So I love being with musicians because music is so healing. It's one of the ways that we respond to, one of the ways we communicate with the spirit. So this would have never happened. Even if I did this behind a closed door, I would have never shown it off like this to people. And now I put on Facebook, I do Facebook Lives where I dance and paint, and I invite people to come and watch me. That would have never happened a decade ago. No way.
Yeah. So, wow. Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Yeah. So you went from corporate executive to, can I talk a little bit about the fact that you're a freaking nomad now, which is awesome? I'm like living this incredibly free lifestyle, doing handle analysis and teaching and speaking and painting and mind blown. And
Yes.
in the world, because we have a world that we need to live in. We need certain things to make the wheels turn to live in our society. It's not like we're on the fringe, right? You know, you're in it. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anthony,
Yeah.
pass it over to you. Give us a little, you know, the pinpoint version of your story.
Well, I was working in in post-production in systems integrator. I worked for systems integrators for post-production video editing. And that's where you and I met.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a buyer. I was an inside sales rep. I was I was the point guy for a lot of the stuff that I was involved in. And I got laid off and 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 laid off. And it was just like, I didn't want to go back, and I actually dropped out of the business for about 6 years. And I forgot, I don't even know what I was doing for those 6 years. Then I stepped back in and I worked for a company where you and I came to work together. And then I got laid off from there after almost 2 years. And I had already stepped into my medicine. I was dating a woman, and she said, you know, you should become an energy healer, because she was hearing a one-sided conversation that I was having on the phone with a guy who was, I've been sober a lifetime. So I was having this conversation, and I said, what's that? And she said, you know, like Reiki. I'm like, well, what's that? I didn't know anything about any of this, because people like you all and me are tree huggers, and I don't want to have anything to do with tree huggers at that time.
Oops.
So I stepped in and I Googled and I found a school, the transformational, what did I see how deep I stepped in, already transformed for me. The Lionheart Institute of Transpersonal Energy Healing in Studio City. And I went to a kind of an introduction on a Tuesday night, and there was another woman in there, and one of us was suicidal, and it wasn't me. And I left, and I didn't go back because I wasn't impressed by anything. I was like, okay. And then my girlfriend sent me to a healer for a 1-year anniversary, and I had this experience. And this healer happened to be a teacher at that school. And I had never had anybody touch me in that way. While I was on the table at the end of the session, she was holding my feet, walked around the table, walked out the door, down the hall, and she was still holding my feet. I couldn't lift my legs. I couldn't lift my arms. And when she came back in, well, first off, she's still holding me. I'm still being held, and she's down the hall. And I was having a wow experience. And I realized that this is what I wanted to do. I had to do this because I for the first time in my life, I was completely open front and back. And I came into my emotion like about a quarter mile away in a parking lot where I was for 2 hours crying. I just couldn't.
Wow.
The emotion came like now. And I had been, powerful stuff. I had been chasing the spoken and unspoken expectation of what I was supposed to do for a lifetime there as a systems integrator, in sales, all that stuff. And when I realized that this is what I wanted to do, I started to really chase this. And I became an energy healer. And then I stepped into that world, and this is what I was doing while I was working. Then when I got laid off from my last job after almost 2 years, I had just gotten married in January. I got laid off in March, and that's when the real transformation started, because I had stepped into my shamanic work. The medicine man stepped up. And the most important thing about that is I kept saying yes, and I kept saying no to my wife, who is no longer my wife anymore. And sometimes we have to let go, and we have to shed those things that no longer serve us, that don't serve us. And they weren't serving us when they were there. To a degree, yes. But I had to let go of that. And was I sad about that? Yes. Was I hurt about that? Yes. Do I hold that sadness and that hurt? No. Because Anthony Rodriguez Walking Crow has stepped up, and I constantly say yes to the medicines that fall on me. I say yes to an Ian Morris. I say yes to an Ingrid Turner. And I say yes to Anna Waleska. Is that how you say her name? Yeah. I say yes. And I believe that saying yes is my purpose. That was a bone of contention between my wife and I. I always said yes. And she was a healer as well. And she was always questioning. I don't question. I just say, okay. And I step forward. I mean, I'm an energy healer, and all of a sudden I'm making shamanic drums. I'm I'm journeying. I'm taking people on journey. I'm drumming for other shamans. I'm teaching the chakras. I'm teaching the medicine wheel. I'm teaching all these things which I've never been taught. I was never taught these things in this lifetime, but I know everything that I'm teaching. I know because I know that I know. And when I'm teaching it, everybody else knows that I know because I never second guess myself, and I don't, doubt myself. And that wasn't the case when I was a child. I was always doubting myself because I was always told to be quiet, you're stupid, you're dumb, all those things. And I'm no longer any of those things, I hope.
Oh, wonderful. Yep. And that's transformation right there. It's the process of stripping it all away.
You're not kidding, to the bone.
Ian, let's bounce it over to you. Give us sort of the pinpoint of your story. And I know it's big, but I know it's a lot.
Well, I think mine is more unraveling, like a sweater. It's just like something grabbed that and just started slowly unraveling it. And, literature, believe it or not, is really some of the biggest groundbreakers for me that really started changing my life when I read The Prophet by Khalil Gibran when I was in 11th grade. And, that book, I was a jock and kind of a sports, person, and it showed me there was a different side of life. When I read that book, it just really connected, kind of like an awakening of sorts. And it just kept going, Hafez, Rumi, a lot of the mystic poets, and getting into a lot of literature, like Graham Hancock and Alan Watts, and just kind of conscious expanding literature. That's really the first, eureka where I was like, wow, there's actually a different side of life than what I've seen or been told, growing up in rural, southern towns. And so, and then it just continued until about 2005, and I think I really shut down to it, and I think that unraveling happened until, like, the chest area of the sweater as a metaphor. And then in 2011, it was just like the whole sweater disappeared and I was in a different dimension. It was like the unraveling was so quick. It was just like waking up in a different dimension, because I had never been sick. I felt ill, and the doctors didn't really have answers for what was going on with me. And it was just a really challenging time. It was lonely, it was stressful, it was painful. I was grasping, I was playing victim, I was, in a state of shock, and trying to grab onto anything that was familiar. And there just wasn't anything there. So when I'm listening to to Anthony and to Anna on the show today, I hear them talk about stepping into confidence and stepping into faith of, why they're here and what they're here to do. And I think that what these awakenings or unravelings are is just basically taking everything that's on your table and just throwing it on the floor, and then sometimes even flipping the table over, where you have nothing to operate on, so you really have to figure out a new game. And so for me, I walked out of the emergency room during the 4th visit, and I literally just was in tears, and I started researching that night as soon as I got home online, some of the side effects and some of the symptoms that I was having from the issues that I was going through. And so I came across this book called The Healing Power of Sound by Mitchell Gaynor, and it was a life-changing read. Again, you see the theme of literature. I love to read, I love to learn, and that book really set me on a path that I was a musician my whole life. I really, I worked with underserved kids with music and art lessons for 10 years in a nonprofit that I worked with. I saw, my whole life how sound and music can change people's lives, not only in, self-esteem and confidence, but just in moods. People that are depressed, you can make them happy. Put on some Bob Marley, put on some different mood-altering music, and you see the effects. So for me, when I started into sound healing, like really diving into it, getting into mantras and chanting, vocal toning, breath work, meditation, all of those things, it set me on a path where literally it was just leveling up, lifetimes. And so it really was a combination of literature and things that were put in my path through family, friends, just random acts of the universe. And then the sickness that really forced me to get out of my self and look at things as an observer, and to really move forward in a way with music that I had been knowing that needed to happen, but was very hesitant and afraid to make that leap with the universe. So it's time. And so, it's it definitely was a process that was very lonely, very painful. But in hindsight, as all of us here today, I think, can attest, is basically you literally go through those things and you start seeing people that come into your path as a healer. And you're like, I know what you're going through. Exactly. And you realize that you went through those painful moments, and you went through all of those challenges and depression and sadness and pain, so that you can help other people that are going through very similar things that the universe is now sending to you. And so I think for me, that, and as Anna was saying, it never stops. The transformation is part of it, but it's an ongoing thing. And I think, Deepak Chopra said, consciousness is a process, it's not a destination. Like that. And I think that's very much true. What we see is we go through this pain and we become the teacher. The student becomes the teacher, and we endlessly are playing this role of teacher, student in our lifetime. So.
Yeah, beautifully put, Ian. I didn't know Deepak Chopra said that, but that's absolutely it right there. Consciousness is not a destination; it's a journey. Everybody is talking, everybody's telling the exact same story here. And my story is the same. It's got a different package around it, but it's the same story. It's the stripping away of that which no longer serves us, that which is unworthy of us, to reveal the essence of who we are. And the reason that is painful, I believe, is because humans are hardwired to resist change. And we hang on to what we know with everything we got, even often when we know it's not good for us. Oh, no, I'm really afraid of what I don't know, what I cannot see. My transformation process started in, when I got sober in 2013, I think it was. Yeah, 2013. See, I don't even keep track. A lot of people who are sober, they keep really careful track, but I've gotten to the point where it's just like, that's just is. This is a different person back then. But I really resonate with Anna's story, talking about working in corporate and feeling very unfulfilled and in a lot of pain. And the way that I would mask that pain, not mask it, but to try and suppress it, was to drink a lot at night by myself. I didn't like to party. I just like to be by myself and drinking it. And I went to, I found myself in an AA meeting going, oh my God, how did I get here? And a year later is when things really flipped, when it was a complete 180. And I was exploring my spirituality again after getting sober, and getting out of corporate, trying to start my own marketing agency, which didn't work at all. But it worked for a minute, but then it kind of crashed and burned because that wasn't it, And I had energy healing work like Anthony. I had energy healing work done. And this woman put her hands on me, and it was like tectonic plates shifted inside me. And something just cracked open in a really profound and rather extreme way. And that's when I started to channel again. That's when I started to get spirit. That's when I had it come in through my crown and finish the process of busting me open. And from there, there's the big transformation, and I couldn't do the work I was doing anymore, which was business and marketing. Couldn't do it. Caused physical pain to do it. Physical pain. So I had to do different work. And that work, I had to find out what that work was. I didn't know it was channeling or spirituality. I didn't know what it was. I didn't have any box for it. And then I think one of the hardest parts for me as the process, the unraveling of that sweater, that's a great analogy, Ian. And the little continuing transformations and hurdles after sort of the big one, that stripped most of it away, was really working, letting go of the ego identity I'd wrapped myself in, which for me was professional working single mother. I was really hung on to that identity. That was hard to let go of because that's not an identity I could hang on to and get into the work that I do now. So incredible stories, each of you. And I know that there's layers and layers and much more depth to it. So thank you for, your brevity as we move along on the show. So my next question for you is, what would you say was the most challenging part of your transformation process? If you think back to one particular time or one particular instance, like what comes up for you that was just, ooh, that was a tough one to get through? Because transformation is long. It's not something that just happens overnight. Oh, okay, I'm done. It can be an ongoing process for quite a while. So if you have something that you recall that just, if you want to share that with us, is what really got you and sort of sucked you dry before you got through to the end of it, I'd love to hear what that is. And Anthony, do you have something that you can share with us?
Sure do.
Sure do.
In February 3rd, it'll be 2 years that I started a group called the Healers Tribe, and this was a group of individuals that I was inviting into the sacred circle of a hub where if somebody needed something and I couldn't provide what it is this person needed, I could look across the hub, the spoke, if you will, to the other side of the wheel and see who was available and who I could refer somebody to. So I started this group on February 3rd with a lady named Amy Satamian at Roots Wellness Center in Sierra Madre, California. And the first day, my wife went with me, and I was at the door smudging people, doing all this stuff. And as people came in, my wife said she was starting to feel ill. And there was 54 people in that room that day. And four of us were men. And what I realize now in hindsight is I had stepped into my power in a completely different way. I was centered. I was front and center. I was the hub of that wheel. And my partner, Amy Satamian, I don't mean partner in romantic related, but partner in that group. It was her studio. She didn't like to speak in public. So, I was stepping into my power of that, of my voice, vibration, palabra, word, aho. And my wife got sicker and sicker as the night went on. And then over the next few days, we ended up in emergency room. She ended up in the hospital, and she had bilateral pulmonary pneumonia. And I realized what was going on. She didn't realize what was going on. She just thought she was sick, but I realized this was affecting her heart space, her air, lungs. I love, I'm loved. I don't have the capacity to love. I don't have capacity to be loved. And she was sick for 2 or 3 months. And I'm going to tell you, it was the hardest thing because I thought she was going to die. And I was trying to work and I couldn't work. I was driving Lyft, and I was house sitting, and I had clients, and I was doing all this stuff. And as we went, I was getting angry, and I was disgruntled and discontent because I couldn't take care of her in a way that was good for me, if there is a way that's good for me, because I felt less than. And excuse me. And over time, she got better slowly. And there was times where she couldn't walk. I had to help her in the bathroom and to the bathroom. And, that's something you probably don't step into till you're later in your years as a couple. But I went through that, and oh my gosh. In April, I was going to be given April 27th, my spiritual name, Walking Crow. And I was coming up on that. And she wasn't very supportive of what I was doing and where I was going with regard to the medicine, what I call the medicine. And there was a ceremony going to be held on the Saturday. But the day before that, I was going to Sweat Lodge. And I went to Sweat Lodge, and I was offered to be a water pourer in the direction of the west, direction of the woman, direction of emotion, darkness, autumn, fall, and which is what I had been teaching. I had been teaching the medicine wheel, and especially the direction of the west. And when I was given that honor, I was just like, wow, what an honor. And because the next day I was going to have this other honor of being given my spiritual name. Well, we went to the next day to the celebration, this naming, walking through the veil, if you will. And I looked at all the pictures, and my wife had thanked everybody for doing this for me, but I knew that wasn't the truth. It was basically a lie. It was a mask. It was false. It was false. And I sat there and I walked through that event, and I looked at all the pictures later, and you could tell that there was just there was an elephant in the room, and she was 4'11", and we separated in July, and got back together in October. And when we got back together, all my clients, all my events, everything had gone away. It just evaporated, disappeared, and I didn't know what I was going to do. But I was going to give the marriage the shot that it deserved. I was going to give myself the shot that it deserved. I was going to give her the shot that she deserved. And she wanted me to get a job, and I couldn't. I had a job. I have a job. Support me in what I'm doing. Be my biggest cheerleader. Don't ignore me, and be my biggest cheerleader. And that wasn't apparently possible. And in January, my wife said, "Hey, I don't want to be married anymore." I said, "Great, let's do this." So that time between February and February, because I signed the papers on the 14th. That was the biggest transition for me, where I stepped into it. I said yes. I said yes to me completely, 100%. And I said no to the desires and wants and expectations, spoken and unspoken, of others. I hope. I could no longer do that. I could no longer chase that dangling carrot that wasn't mine to chase. So here I am.
Yeah, so much of transformation takes place in relationships, with the other person mirroring back to you in stark reality what you're struggling with internally, what we cannot give to ourselves. It's just, that's why sometimes somebody will come in and want a reading from me, and they'll say, "Whoa, this seems really like trite, but I want to talk about my relationship." And I say, "No, relationships are some of the most important things we do within our human experience. Those are the mirrors. Those are the catalysts for deep transformation." And it's not easy. It's not easy. So I applaud you for walking through that. And it sounds to me like it wasn't like oh, I'm just not going to do this anymore because it's not easy. It's like you gave it what you could. And she just showed up to be one of those soulmates that really come to, I'm gonna transform you, and only I can do it because I'm a close soulmate.
She is a catapult.
Yes, absolutely.
I have been transported into the fourth dimension, and I have to thank her for that.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing. Ian.
Yes.
How about you, my dear? Tell us what comes to mind that was just a really particularly difficult period for you in this process of becoming.
I think that it was the late 2011, beginning of 2012, which is, interesting, that timeline there. But I lost everything. I lost my health. I lost my car, my house, my place to live. Future was uncertain. Lost my job. I was in the lowest point, that I had ever been in my life. Just asking a lot of questions. And I remember I was in my apartment, and I was about to be evicted at the end of that week, and I was sick. I didn't know where I was going, what was going to happen. And I remember sitting down on the bed and just communicating with spirit, just asking God, like, okay, you got my attention. Because I was definitely one of those people I'm very hard-headed. I don't listen very well. I like to make my own path, and try to show me stuff. I'm like, I'll figure it out. I've been that way since I was like 8 years old. But I just always wanted to do things my own way. And if I failed, I wanted it to be because I failed, not because I followed someone else's instructions, and then felt like I could have done something better. I would like to, I always wanted to make my own decisions. And so, you learn as you mature that there's a part of that that's there with you. to help you, your heart compass, your soul guide, your essence of being that speaks to you. But then there's a part as you mature that you realize that it's not that bad to listen, to just simply stop talking and actually listen to not only family and friends and coworkers, but also environmental and issues that are coming up in your life. They're there for a reason, and you start, just as Anthony was saying, she was his catalyst to move on. Sometimes we have sickness, sometimes we have things that seem bad in the moment, that are those catalysts if we can listen. I think Wayne Dyer said that every tragedy, or I can't remember the word he used, but he said, all of those can be, a bad hardship, or they can be a lesson, and I always, that really stuck with me. And, following these transformations of everyone around me that, are in my tribe, in my community. And so for me, that was definitely the moment that I started really questioning myself and questioning what it was that I needed to do. But it was such a bleak moment that I didn't know if I was going to recover from it. It was, I think, the day that I left my apartment and started, I slept outside. I slept, at friends' houses that would let me stay. And so, and I don't really talk about this, that much, because it's one of those moments where, just like you were saying, Ingrid, like, how did I get here? How did this happen? And so, it was a moment where everything that I tried to do to change the situation, to better my situation, kept getting roadblocked. And at the time, I didn't really understand why that was, but I was getting angry and frustrated with myself, with God, with everybody else around me. And it stayed there, it lingered. And it was because there was a lesson that I wasn't listening to. There was a lesson that I wasn't looking for, and I wasn't really doing the work to get get that lesson learned to move forward. And so that time period probably stayed with me almost a year and a half of just like failures, things that trying to change my situation. And it's just like you were saying, all of us here, it's until you listen to that voice, until you really start connecting with your authenticity, your confidence of spirit, your heart compass, we're going to have continued resistance, and it'll just keep going until we decide to say, okay, God, you got my attention. What is it that I'm supposed to be doing right now? So for me, that moment, leaving the apartment was the hardest, because I had absolutely no idea what was going to happen. And that was a pretty
wow.
So,
right.
yeah.
Stepping into the unknown in every sense of the word. Oh my God, Ian. Thank you. Before we do that, Anna, let me bounce it over to you and say, what do you remember? What do you remember? What that was like, ooh, that right there, that hurt. That was hard.
What do I want to forget?
What do you want to forget? Right? That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah. Similarly to Ian, actually, it's a combination of several different situations that were similar to Anthony's and Ian's, where I had to let go of a relationship, and I had to, I was stripped down financially. I had to claim bankruptcy. I moved in with my parents, and I was following.
Sorry.
I'm glad it's funny to you now. No, I'm laughing about it. I believe.
Yeah.
I believe that money is our last frontier between the human that we used to be and the human that we need to become. And money speaks to us louder than anything else ever will. I mean, and I think because there is so much shame attached to it, we don't even know how many people that point of money beating them down is that point of okay, what else needs to happen, right? And it's happened several times in my lifetime. And I know that money it's part of my lesson in my hands too, lifelong lesson, money. And I know that it's the language that I connect to. So one of those times when I knew it, now looking backwards, that it was smack over the head, was when I did lose everything, when I went from extreme wealth to completely like, I don't even understand why nothing is working. Why is everything just leaving away from me, right? Anything, I'm talented, I'm skilled, I have great personality, and I can't get myself out of this money bag.
Mm-hmm.
So that was definitely one of those times. And I remember talking to a friend of mine at a time. I met her in Starbucks, and I said, I feel so alone. I don't know where else to turn. I feel so alone. I had people around me. I had my parents, I had my brother. I was talking to a friend, and I said, I feel like there is just nobody, and I'm all alone in this. And I was in a victim mode. I was wallowing in my, how did I get here? How did I allow this to happen? What could have I done differently? And looking backwards, it really was a blessing, because it was one of those times where I made a decision. I said, okay, not this, then what? Because none of this is working. And I've had that message many times since then. Every time where I step away, or I'm being called to step in higher, to be more true to the calling, to the voice, and open up. Every time where I resist, guess what talks to me? Money. And it usually says, I'll be back when you're back.
That's great, Anna. That's great. So money is the sticking point. I think money is the sticking point for a lot of people, especially in spiritual or intuitive work, because, and here's why. I had a conversation with a woman, and we talked about money, and we talked about healers, and she said, well, 1,000 years ago, healers lived at the edge of the village, and they were just taken care of. People brought them food, they provided housing for them, and they were like happy and grateful to do it because they were getting spiritual services. And that's just not the case nowadays. So the download that I got about money at one point was, you have to make it part of your spiritual practice. It's like those of us who have gone through the transformation process, and we learned through like fire, how to listen to our intuition and how to call in what we need for our spiritual and our purpose development. You just take that same energy and you apply it to money.
Yeah.
Super hard to do because we're not in the habit of doing it. And we forget that we can do it that way. But I agree. Money is a sticking point. I think it's a sticking point for all of us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Anna. So since we've got 10 minutes of the show left, I'm going to jump over to questions. We have a couple of questions that came in, and I'm excited. The first question is from Jamie. Jamie is asking, what is each of your experiences with major transformation while parenting young children, if any? How to balance the different poles? I think I'm the only parent on this panel, aren't I? Okay,
I'm not a parent.
Jamie, I'm going to answer that for you. That's all me. Here's the thing. When you go, one of the things that is so difficult about going through transformation, this transformative process, is it feels like we're all alone. It feels like we're floating and there's nothing there to support us and no one there to support us. But the truth is, Spirit is not going to let you fall. Spirit, God, is not going to let you hit the ground with a thud. And I know that right now, or oftentimes, it feels like, how can you prove that to me? How do you know that that's not going to happen? And how I know that is faith, going through the fire myself and experiencing not hitting the ground when by all rights I should have. In early 2015, I was living in, right after I'd had my big awakening, and everything fell apart for me. And I had my young son with me. He was 8 at the time. And we were living in West Hollywood. We had an apartment. I had this marketing agency that really should have been really successful. I mean, it was a killer idea. It was so good. And it's like every time I connected with somebody, it just fell through. Everything fell apart. Mm-hmm. And suddenly I couldn't do that work anymore because I'd had this really intense spiritual awakening. And I was really out of my body. And I had this young son to care for. So everything fell apart. We lost our apartment and we ended up moving back up north to Northern California, which I was kicking and screaming. I'm still kick and scream a little bit. I mean, I want to be, out in the world. And not only that, but we ended up moving into, first we moved out into the middle of absolutely nowhere and lived with a dear friend of mine who took us in because I was a mess. I was burned and broken. I couldn't move forward anymore. And we lived in a little tiny room kind of off of his house together. And then that fell away because we were going through this process. That's what everything does. And then we ended up moving in with my mother. And I think everybody here has this experience of going back to mom and dad's when you're way too old to be doing that, right? And that right there is really difficult on the ego. My mother had a 1-bedroom apartment, or not,
Yeah.
sorry, a 1-bedroom house. And at the same time, my brother had his own transformational period, and he ended up in her garage. You know, I mean, it was like that poor woman had her children descending on her. And it all felt really scary to me, and it felt really scary with my son. And I had to deal with not being able to go and do the work that I'd always done in order to support him, having to do the work that I was doing now, and having to rebuild from the ground up and rebuild my whole self. But the truth is that people caught us. You know, people caught us. My friend Zach caught us. My mother caught us. We ended up in a caretaking position. We bounced around a lot. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't great. It wasn't the perfect way to parent. But the advice I would give to you as you're going through this is to, when you feel like you're all alone and you feel like you're falling and you don't have anything to hold on to, look around at who's showing up in your life. Because if you look, every single one of us, as we look back on our transformational period, people will have shown up in our lives either part-time, just for a moment, or more permanently, and they will have come in and they will have caught you just before you hit the ground. And that's part of the transformation process, is that feeling of falling and feeling like you're going to hit the ground, and coming to terms with the fact that you're going to hit the ground. And then that's when spirit can come in and go, I got you, baby. I got you, baby. So it won't look like you think it ought to look when caring for your children while you're going through this transformation process. But it's going to be okay. And it's good for you. It's good for your kid. You know, that's life. And your kid always has you to depend on. You are the stable influence. Your child is stable. You are the stable influence for your child. And as long as you're there and continue to be in love with your child, they're going to be okay. And you'll be caught. Okay, let's go again. Next question is from Jim Power. Question for Anna. Since you are in Colorado and I'm in California, is it possible to do hand analyst work from a distance? By the way, you have incredible energy.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, all the work I do is remote. So yes, that was quick.
That was quick, yeah. So should he go to your website, find out how to do that?
Yes. He can either contact me, just message me, private message me, or go to my website, and there is a way to connect with me there. Yep.
And Jim, I'm happy to make that introduction for you as well. Yeah, Anna's fantastic. You're gonna love this. Okay. So that's actually all we have for questions. So I think people are standing in the shadows and kind of going, well, let's see. Oh, wait. Let's see what they say. We have another question coming in from Jamie. How did you explain what was happening to them in a way they understood? Jamie, I was really honest with my son. I was just really honest with him. Kids, I can speak for my child, but this feels like it's true for all children. When you're really honest and forthright in an age-appropriate way with them and what's going on, that's what makes them feel safe. I'll tell you a story. My son and I have always had a really close relationship, and we've always been really, really tight and really communicative with each other. Our relationship is heavy on communication. After I moved back up here from Los Angeles, I got a phone call from Homeland Security. Homeland Security told me that they had arrested a former tutor of my son's for child pornography, and they needed to interview my son to make sure that he hadn't been molested, that he hadn't been touched, that he hadn't been hurt in any way. And I went, oh my God. So I had to drive him down. I had to drive him, an hour away to go to the Homeland Security office up here. And I said, well, what do I tell my son? And he said, you can't tell him anything, because that taints our case and we can't use anything. You cannot tell him anything. I said, you don't understand. I have to tell him something. He goes, figure it out. You can't tell him anything. So I didn't say anything to my son. And one day I pulled him out of school and I said, okay, we're going to go to Sacramento. And he goes, why? I said, can't tell you. And he was so mad at me. Oh my God, the whole way. He was fuming. He was so angry. And he went in there and he talked to the interviewer. And he came out and he stood in front of me at the waiting room and he said, now tell me. I was like, oh my God. But what that illustrated for me is that, he didn't feel safe because he didn't have he didn't know what was going on. He didn't have any kind of communication from me. Even if I'd been able to say something sort of vague to him, he would have felt better. But because I couldn't say anything at all to him, he felt totally unsafe, even though he was with me. So communication, age-appropriate communication with your children, they don't know any better. They don't know that it's not normal. They don't know that it's not okay. That's the adults in our lives who go, well, you ought to get your kids aren't going to do that. They don't. And I found that it was a really good teaching opportunity for my son to be able to show him, hey, sometimes life falls apart and we build it back up, and that's okay. We don't have to have it right. We don't have to have it perfect all the time. And it's really quickly, there's another question that I really want to get to. I want to say, in hindsight, what was, sorry, let me try that again. What is the single most important piece of advice you would give to anybody watching or listening in right now who's going through a really difficult period, a transformative period in their life? Single, one nugget of gold. Ian, will you start us off? Do you have one?
Yeah.
Good.
I think that most of our adult life, we're taught to shut down emotion, be tough, get through, suck it up, especially as a man. The whole culture is embedded. It's just set to put us on a path of like cutthroat, whatever it takes to succeed, don't cry, be tough, shake it off, that kind of thing. And I think as a man, going through an awakening, you learn that your heart is your greatest treasure. If you can listen, that would be my advice, is to listen to your heart, because the essence of your being really knows what you're supposed to be doing, at all times. And, we kind of don't listen to it all the time, and we push on, and one day it will say, yo, we're done here. It's time to get on board with the real plan, And so I think if I had any advice, it would be to go straight to that, not all the awakening and all the roundabout stuff that brings you back to it, but initially just try to drop that mind logic and, stuff to the heart, and just go straight with what it's, the instructions there. So.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ian. Anthony, what you got for us?
I would say be in the acceptance and the expectance of things are going to happen, and in saying yes to them and surrendering to the happening, kind of like when you're in a tide pool and just stop fighting, and allow yourself to float through it, because it's going to hurt whether you fight or not. And if it does, just allow yourself to be with that hurt and feel it, like Ian spoke to, feel it and be with it. And allow yourself to come into the feeling, because many of us are told to be quiet, don't cry, don't do this, don't do that. You know what? We're emotional cripples. I am no longer an emotional cripple. You don't have to be. You can feel the feelings, and feelings are facts. I hope.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Anthony. Anna, how about you, my dear?
Yes, agree with both of you gentlemen. Super important. Accept what's going on, face what's going on, don't deny it, don't push it down. Find one thing every single day that works, just one tiny thing. Even if that one thing is you walking out of the house or getting out of bed, one thing that you can hang your head on for that day or for that moment. So it's a form of gratitude, right? Like find something that works and let that keep pulling you forward.
Beautiful. I echo you with gratitude right there. A couple of years ago, I started doing a gratitude list every single day, and it really, really helps. And more than that, you can take that gratitude list and you can pull out, what are you grateful for? Even if you can only think of like, I'm breathing, I've got air to breathe.
Yeah.
If the sun is out, I'm really glad because I need the vitamin D, holy God. But also something that I've found that really helped me move the energy and move through the difficult transformation period was to add to my gratitude list what I wanted, as if I already had it, or what I needed, as if I already had it. That pulls it into you. That opens up the energy and sort of creates a magnet so that comes to you. I look back on old gratitude lists because I have journals that I keep, and I put something on there that I put on there that I didn't have, and then suddenly I have it. When I'm looking back, I'm like, yay! So that really helps get you. That helps get you sort of open up the energy and get you moving through it in an effective way. It did for me. Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you all so very, very much for coming on today. Anthony, Ian, and Anna, you are amazing. And it was amazing to hear even just a small, tiny piece of your story. Thank you for coming on and sharing your heart with us. And I'm sure that this will help people who are listening in and going through their own turmoil right now. And it's hard, and nobody's going to deny that it's hard. We accept and we validate that it is a really difficult time for you. And please reach out when you need it. Reach out when you need it. Mm-hmm. Okay, Anthony, we can find you at sacreddrum24.weebly.com. Ian, we can find you at listeningtosmile.com, and Anna at annakowalska.com. And thank you so much again for joining me. If you would all mute yourselves, I'm going to close this up and we'll be good. Thank you so much. I adore you. I adore you all. All right. All right, thank you for tuning in to the Living in Partnership with Spirit show. Once again, I'm Ingrid Turner. I'm your host. I'm so thrilled to be here. I'm so thrilled to have had on these wonderful people with this wonderful topic, and I hope it has been as valuable to you as it has been to me. You can find me at ingridhturner.com, INGRIDH Turner, TURNER.com. You can read more about me, who the heck am I, and if you feel called to, please book a session with me. I would love the opportunity to sit with you and tune into the divine for you. If you're interested in being a part of this show, either as a panelist or to come on as a spiritual messenger, please send me a message. You can send me an email at ingrid1030@gmail.com, or if you're connected to me on Facebook, you can find me there and you can send me a message via Messenger. All right. Thank you again so much. Thank you for tuning in, for listening in. Thank you for your questions. I adore you. It's just awesome. Have a wonderful rest of your day.